Pretty good. I'm going to pause everyone's uploads just to take that out of the equation. Bum, 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 bum. Shoo-doop-dab-dab-doob-dab-boo. Do a little
You're
bit
doing
of
great, David.
on-hold music. Okay.
Dun, 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 da-da,
Actually, yes, Matt.
Matt can provide.
Help us out here, buddy.
Matt will provide a way.
Your call is very important to
great.
us. Please stay on the line.
Oh, play
That
us
was
something.
good.
Oh, and yeah, we're live now.
Okay.
Live on YouTube.
Oh, people missed the best part.
Yeah,
Your call is very important to us.
yeah.
We're experiencing unusually high call volumes.
There we go. Sarah McHale is here. And Thornton, did you get a drink, friend?
I did. I had some leftover tea from an earlier brew, so I filled that up and heated it up, and ready to go.
All right.
Excellent. Well, then that's actually a nice transition to the second round of people that we've got here. Matt Bush, who are you? What are you drinking? And what have you been reading recently?
I am known as the lesser Pints with Jack co-host, sometimes the third child, and resident colored commentarist person.
And word maker, wordsmith,
And word maker.
constrained by the rules of
And
English
the-
grammar.
No,
That's
it's
exactly
the
right. I channel
it's
my
the
inner-
misquotable Matt.
Yes. I channel my inner Tolkien. I just invent languages. Pints with Jack, obviously one of the co-hosts, and drinking. My in-laws had some Arbor 12, which is fantastic. So
Ooh, nice.
I'm excited.
Lovely. And next up, our on-call music specialist, Mr. Matt Wheeler.
That's tasty.
Yeah, if Matt Bush wasn't going to be able to make it, I was thinking I could be the backup Matt, but I'll be Matt too, and that works.
Be a good
too.
worthy replacement.
Yeah, it's like anyway. So anyhow, my name is Matt Wheeler. I live in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania, and I caught on to the Pints with Jack podcast, and I already enjoyed C.S. Lewis, but it's helped me to go further up and further in with his writings, including things like the letters. And I had never read Paralandra until this year, and so I read that actually on a recent trip, most of it, and finished it up recently. It was wonderful. And Andrew, thanks for the shout outs on the podcast about our text
Absolutely.
conversation around that.
Yeah, that's great.
And I also read Letters from Jack recently because the folks at Pints with Jack sent it to me because I'm a Patreon backer. And they also backed me on Kickstarter for a custom song. So later on, you'll hear my song, which is inventively titled Pints with Jack, about what it'd be like to have a pint with Jack, perhaps with a Guinness in a Pints with Jack pint glass, which is what I'm drinking. Earlier it was matcha because I was going the caffeinated route. Other stuff. Yeah, I'm just I'll play some songs later, both Lewisian, and I'm just glad to be here yet again. So thanks for having me back, guys.
Yep, another returning live streamer from the British live stream. Now the final Pints with Jack co-host, Mr. Andrew Lazo.
Well, hello everybody. I've been concierging the chat, but Andrew Lazo here, drinking a Strongbow cider, courtesy of my sister-in-law. I'm with my wife's family as well in Sarasota, Florida, Gosh, I think Thornton, have we met in person before? Were we at a conference together?
No, we hadn't had the pleasure. It was, it was
Okay.
over the podcast. Yeah.
Forgive me. Yeah, it was another podcast. And so Thornton's the only one who I haven't been face to face with. Joel Heck and I first met, I think, in Oxford with our dear Steve Beebe. And then he did a number of the C.S. Lewis events in Texas, and just one of my favorite moments. I mentioned it on the podcast the last live stream. Being at the Wade Center with Joel Heck and calling over my shoulder for a date and him calling forward for for a reference. And so Joseph and David and I were all together at the conference in Portland, as was William O'Flaherty. And I've seen William everywhere as well. And I actually only met Matt Bush in person just last year. So, and then all three of us were first together in the same room at Matt's wedding. And to whom cheers, to Mary Margaret and to Marie and to Kristen, who are all in other rooms. So, and all of our wives, to Cheryl, Heck, and fill in your wife's name here.
Cheers.
Lori.
Yes.
Well, for our final guest on the show, Mr. Joel Heck. Hello.
Yes.
Would you mind telling people who you are and what you've been reading and if you're drinking anything?
Yes. Well, I just had a cup of coffee, but last night I had a Kilkenny Lager, Irish beer. That was pretty good. I am currently serving as president of Concordia Lutheran Seminary in Edmonton, Alberta, the capital of the province, in a 2-year appointment between presidents for the seminary and helping to tie the bow between my predecessor and what will hopefully be my successor. Just finished reading a delightful little book, somewhat imaginative, somewhat historical, by Patty Callahan, called Once Upon a Wardrobe.
Yes,
So,
yes.
you know that title, and delightful sort of recreation of what it might have been like to meet Lewis and his brother and chat with him in the kilns in late 40s, early 1950s. So I am the creator and author of Chronologically Lewis, which is this massive compendium of events and dates from the birth of Lewis, and even a little bit before that, to the death of Jack and then Warren. So everything you wanted to know about Lewis, or at least wanted to check out what's happening on a particular day in history for either one of those brothers, that's the place to go. And was a major resource for putting together No Ordinary People, because I can look up somebody like Mary Nayland or Maureen Moore and find every reference to her in that database, that chronology, and then make sure I cover the waterfront pretty thoroughly. And that was a major piece in putting together each of the chapters in No Ordinary People. Other than that, I'm living a rather boring life, looking at budgets and recruitment and policies and administrative sorts of things. But next semester, I get to teach a course on the life and writings of C.S. Lewis.
Yay.
So that's going to be a delight, to be sure. It'll be the best part of each day, where I get to meet students in class.
Well, and listeners, if you don't know Chronologically Lewis, just type it in, or Joel Heck Chronologically Lewis, and it is just a ridiculously astounding resource, and the work of so many years and so much care. Joel, I actually have a big idea to talk with you about, not tonight, but sometime soon, and you would be intimately involved. But his work is so valuable, and the generosity to make that open. Joel has read every biography, every letter, every diary, everything related where he could possibly find a date, and has put that date in. I recently was invited to do a talk back for a screening of Freud's Last Session. And we had a local psychology professor come on. And when the question was, did Lewis actually meet Freud on September 6th? I said, well, according to Joel Heck, it's almost impossible that he could have done so. And your work continues to be not only a standard setting effort in the C.S. Lewis world, it's just invaluable. And it's an incredible resource. So if you don't know Chronologically Lewis, go there. And also, he's written a number of books. He brought Personal Heresy back into print for the first time in decades. He's the first person, I think, to really engage in print with early prose joy and to look at Lewis's atheism. Joel wrote a book on Lewis's journey from atheism to Christianity. And so just an invaluable gift to the C.S. Lewis world. So here's to Joel Heck.
Yeah,
Joel Heck.
here.
Cheers.
Thank you.
This feels like a great lifetime achievement award kind of celebration. I love it.
Well, with with a toast is a good way to begin. So, Joel, would you mind just telling us a little bit about No Ordinary People and tell us about some of the people that you talk about in this book who were Lewis's friends?
Yes, I told you a little bit about how it came to be. I mean, if I hadn't put chronologically Lewis together, I probably wouldn't have been able to write the journey of Lewis from atheism to Christianity, or this book, No Ordinary People. But I'd done a little bit of dabbling in some of the people close to Lewis, like Warren Lewis. I'd written an article about him and a couple of other people, and I decided that, well, it'd be really interesting to pull together a lot of chapters, a lot of articles, like Lewis's relationship to an Alec Vidler or to Janie Moore. I mean, I make the case in that chapter that, yeah, everybody wants to know, and I guess we now know after Walter Hooper's death that Jack and Janie were intimate in those early years up until Lewis's conversion. I'd never really read anything in any depth about Arthur Greaves or Austin Farrer, so I just decided to see if I can pull things together from all of the works of Lewis and the references in chronologically Lewis, and write a chapter about it. And one chapter after another came off the pen, and I found really fascinated by the various more in-depth views of these 21 different people that Lewis interacted with. So I actually quoted from one of the chapters in preparation for today. I reread 3 of the chapters in that book. The one on Arthur C. Clarke, maybe the most famous of those 21 writers or authors or friends of Lewis, was one of the top 3 writers of science fiction in the 20th century, and was side by side with Walter Cronkite and Wally Schirra when Apollo 11 went to the moon. Maureen Moore, the daughter of Janie Moore, who knew Lewis rather well for about 40 years. And then Mary Nayland is the one, her maiden name was Mary Shelley, same name as the author of Frankenstein, but not that same person, but distantly related to the author of Frankenstein. And it was towards the end of the chapter on Mary Nayland that I ran across this when my administrative assistant came in and had me sign some documents, like make me feel important, I think. And I assured her that it was no imposition. This is my job. And I quoted this thing where Lewis writes to Nayland, who thinks that she's bothering him and she shouldn't really be wasting his time with her letters and visits. And he says in one of his letters, "You may put out of your head any idea of not having a claim on any help I can give. Every human being, still more every Christian, has an absolute claim on me for any service I can render them without neglecting other duties." And I told her name's Danielle, and I told Danielle, that's true of you for me. So just don't, I mean, you're doing your job, I'm doing mine. Happy to be of any assistance I can for you to help you do your job as well as possible. So that's not going to make the top 100 favorite quotations of Lewis, but I want to assure William that Lewis did actually say that. It is true. It comes from a letter that Lewis wrote in 1941, shortly after Nayland became a Christian. And she was an atheist when she became one of Lewis's students. She was, I think, at St. Hugh's College, but took English tutorials with Lewis under the recommendation of Hugo Dyson. And then because she was going to be a teacher, and she became a teacher later on, under the recommendation of Dyson, she went to Lewis for tutorials with Lewis on English literature, and then he helped her understand English literature a great deal better. And in the midst of that, she was, I think, attracted by Lewis's mind, his love of literature. Even though Lewis probably didn't witness to her, she knew something was deeper about this man who was also a man of God. And eventually she became a Christian, largely under the influence of C.S. Lewis. So that would be one of the 3 people I would especially highlight out of that book. And nobody, well, probably some of you remember reading that in one of his letters, but that doesn't get quoted. Certainly not in Martindale and Root's book, The Quotable C.S. Lewis.
Well, Joel, because I am a student of yours, I can't help but notice that he sends that letter before the flood of mail begins with screw tape letters and never ends. And incidentally, I just heard from Patty Callahan. She's in Hawaii with her family for Thanksgiving, and she says she hates missing this, and she sends greeting to us all. And so Patty Callahan's live texting. But yeah, I think that he might have sung another tune a few years after all the snowfall of mails came.
I bet. Yeah, I just wrote to Patty because having read that book, it seemed like she had the history down very well. And I wondered if maybe she checked out a historical reference or two in Chronologically Lewis. And she's familiar with it.
I imagine she might have. When Becoming Mrs. Lewis came out, she sent me an advanced copy. I went through it and found some corrections that I would suggest. She very generously listened to them all and made a number of corrections in the second edition of the paperback. And so in an incredible act of kindness, Patty sent she actually sent the draft of the manuscript to Kristen and me. She said, I learned my lesson. I don't want to make changes after the book comes out. Would you vet this for me? And so I'm quite certain that I pointed her towards Chronologically Lewis. That's because I do that for everybody because it's such a great resource. And so I'm just texting her back to give her your kind words. And she wishes she can join us and promises to come on next year.
Yeah, I was just going to pipe in and say, I don't know if everyone caught that. Joel mentioned he was rereading his own book. Those of us who are authors totally understand this, but we don't always remember everything we've written, and we have to refer back to it. So the challenge is not only of remembering Lewis's quotes accurately, but what we have written as well. I was reviewing something that I'll mention later that I had done just over 10 years ago. And it's not like I'm reading and going, oh, what a great writer or whatever, but just, oh, okay, I'd already said this or that. But yeah, authors don't always remember their own work.
Yeah. It's the same when I'm listening to old episodes of Pints of Jack. Say if we're getting a guest on again, I'll listen to it and I was like, oh, that was quite an intelligent comment. It's like, kind of impressed myself.
Yeah. Walter Hooper would quote Lewis to Lewis. As C.S. Lewis would say, oh, wait, but you are him. And then Lewis would playfully say, as C.S. Lewis would say, make us a cup of tea. And as C.S. Lewis would say, give me mine with sugar.
Well, one of the things we're going to do on these live streams is give away some books and some music. So we're going to be giving away a copy of Joel's book, No Ordinary People. And I've just sent all of the subscribers on our newsletters through my wonderful program. And the winner of that book is Leanne Benfield Martin.
Oh, I love Leanne Martin. I met her at C.S. Lewis Institute Atlanta. She and her husband Mart Martin are old friends of Kristen's. And Leanne and Mart are great friends who we just met. I met in person just a couple of months ago. So, yay! Cheers to you. No nepotism. I didn't draw the number.
No. That was. It was
I was going to say, are we sure this wasn't rigged?
No, I didn't let Andrew anywhere near my coding. And
not that I would know what to do with it. Yeah.
I'm giving away 5 books from. I've got a big Google Doc with all of the books that I've got to give away. So I will be emailing all of these people, and they just get to pick one of the books out of that collection. So Susan Everett, Melissa Mayho, Meredith Camilleri, Mark Cook, Gord Taylor, Gwendolyn Martin. Oh, actually, no. And the last 2 are getting a different album from Matt Wheeler. The Gwendolyn Martin, she's getting The Wonder of It All. And Marcus Clear is getting A Hard History of Love. So I will be emailing you once this live stream is over, asking for there it is. You can even see what you just won. So you can mail me your addresses, and I can get those to you. But let's now pivot and discuss the main theme of this year's C.S. Lewis Reading Day. So I'm just going to put it to the entire panel. What are some of the key ideas about friendship that we find in Lewis's life, his works, his letters? And is there any area where you actually disagree with him? Who would like to kick things off?
I would love to hear Joel kick it off, having written the No Ordinary People.
Lewis on the Four Loves, certainly that's part of the preface or introduction to the book, where he talks about friendship as being two friends side by side looking in the same direction. I certainly agree with him on that subject. I think it's there's an advantage and a disadvantage to disagreeing with Lewis. The advantage is he's not here to defend himself. The disadvantage is you're probably wrong. Yeah, being a Protestant Christian, I would disagree with Lewis on the doctrine of purgatory. But in terms of friendship, I think he's right on target. And so I like that book really developed from Lewis's emphasis on the Four Loves.
Come on, somebody else is can disagree for sure.
One of the things that we discussed in our email pre-chat as we were organizing this day was about the relative absence of clear friendships in most of Lewis's work. It's mostly consigned to the Chronicles of Narnia. But I listened to a podcast today where Mr. Joseph Weigel argued for friendship in That Hideous Strength. Joseph, would you like to tell us a little bit about your thoughts there?
Yeah, well, I think he's putting it more in like a picture form. He's giving us an illustration with the company at St. Anne's of what a group of people that have differences and yet are in pursuit of the highest thing. And so they are after a particular good in that story. And I think, like Dr. Heck said, that is a uniting feature for friendship that Lewis identifies. He's very much Aristotelian in that regard. You know, you're aiming for a particular good. And so I think we see that with the company at St. Anne's. They have plenty of disagreements, and Lewis has a lot of fun with, you know, having Ransom disagree with McPhee and Ivy Maggs, and he has a lot of fun with this, but yet they still unite around this common purpose. And I think this is actually a beautiful illustration of what true friendship looks like. No one ever agrees with everybody, you know, in everything. You know, you have these, and you have humor in there. And so we see, I think, Lewis painting this picture of what it looks like for a disparate group of people to get together and pursue an ideal. And that's the uniting factor for them. And this is, of course, contrasted with what happens with the NICE, where, you know, that there is no genuine friendship there. Everything is, you know, backstabbing and trying to get ahead. And even though they describe themselves as a family, as Wither says, there's no genuine friendship.
You know what? If we were together in the same room, I would pour you another glass of wine and then and begin an argument with you, because I would wonder if what they're sharing is storge instead of philia. And but I love the fact that I think that would be a great argument to have, and mostly I'd start the argument because I'd probably lose.
Well, and I think it could be both too. Yeah, I don't think it's limited to one or the other. I think you see more philia, actually, for instance, in the relationship between McPhee and Ransom.
Yes, sure.
So, yeah, I think it would depend on, you know, the nuance of the characters.
We have now just been joined by Mr. Chris Pipkin. Hey, Chris.
Yay! Hey, Chris.
How's it going? Man, sorry about that.
No worries, no worries. We were just talking about C.S. Lewis and friendship. What are your thoughts?
And what are you drinking?
Oh, man. Well, I hate to make you all look basic, but I'm drinking Coke Zero.
Oh, wow.
And, yeah, I mean, it's like mini Coke Zero, which is very cool. What have you all been saying about C.S. Lewis and friendship? I don't want to just say something that people have already
No. Let's give it the hot take. Go for it.
We said it wasn't very important, and that he didn't have many friends.
All true. All true.
The least concern in his life.
Yeah, sorry, I'm just sitting up. Yeah, so one of the things, like I was going through Surprised by Joy earlier this month, and one of the things that occurred to me is that, in addition to being his conversion story, it's also, a story of his education and how through education he came to Christ, but it's also a story of his friendships. That absolutely friendships were. Friendships and education were absolutely central to his becoming a Christian, right? And I think he really viewed everything through the interrelationships between him and his closest friends.
We were also talking about how there aren't too many examples of friendship actually within his work, despite the fact it was such an important part of his own life. We spoke a little bit about that hideous strength and the portrait of Philia that we find there. Can anyone else think of any particular friendships in the rest of his fiction that really jump out at them as emblematic of Lewis's own love for friends?
Well, I wanted to, I guess, piggyback on Joseph's comment about the group at St. Anne's, and I think we can debate whether it's Storgi or Philia, but I just think it's interesting that if you do say it's Philia, that how it's a friendship amongst a group and not like a one-on-one relationship like we mostly think of friendship, which I think is probably very reflective of Lewis. Obviously, he had his friendships with Tolkien and Arthur Greaves and these one-on-one relationships, but I think we can all agree, and I think this call is maybe indicative that you can have the friendship you have with a group is maybe of a different quality or type than what you have with an individual in that group. So I think the St. Anne's is an interesting example because there's no like Sam and Frodo relationship per se, or there's no maybe Shasta and Aravis is maybe another example. It's like the whole group together is a friend, and if you take one person out, it changes the dynamic completely.
Maybe a little connection with the Mary Nayland chapter. Remember David C. Downing arguing that Mary Nayland was the model that Jack used for Jane Studdock in That Hideous Strength. Some similarities in the relationship between Lewis and Mary, and then that carries over into the book. Found that fascinating, and I think he made a strong case.
Yeah. There's certainly friendship between Lucy and Tumnus. The friendship between Orwell and Bardia, however flawed by her own device, or actually, let's say the friendship between Bardia and Orwell is an important friendship. And Orwell's friendship, I think, with the fox is also key. Well, and you see a couple of friends in The Great Divorce, people who knew each other and were friendly with each other. Lewis's second best book, of course.
This is a perfect example of a friendship where people don't actually agree with everything. Some people have these crazy opinions.
Yes, and then some of us are right. Just Lewis and I are right, and the rest of you have your crazy opinions. Sorry, listeners.
One friendship I would add.
Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, you don't.
Okay, I was going to add one from Out of the Silent Planet, like the first sentient being that Ransom meets.
Yeah.
Who he at first is like, I mean, it's like a human-sized otter, but turns out like he's like he doesn't know what to make of him at first, but he gets to be like his one friend and ally, his first one, on Mars as we would call it, or Malacandra, but he comes to really like and respect him and actually learn from him. And of course, the tragedy that happens is all the more poignant because like this is a character you've really gotten to know and care about, and Ransom has too. So that's one good example I can think of from a book that I read thanks to Pints with Jack.
Yay!
You're welcome.
Well, as long as we're doing Ransom trilogy, the friendship between narrator Lewis and Ransom, and narrator Lewis, Ransom, and Humphrey Havard, the real life doctor. And I think that Barfield is mentioned as well. And so Lewis kind of drags some of his real friends into this fictional friendship. And so, but certainly the fictional Lewis and Ransom are absolutely full on friends.
And that is a wonderful thing when you can just pull your friends into a book that you're writing. And
Yeah.
I still maintain that the postscript in Out of the Silent Planet is literally his notes from an Inklings meeting after everybody had heard Out of the Silent Planet. It was all of their criticisms about things that they didn't like and things they wanted him to go back and change. And he basically said, there are these things, but I'm not going to do any of those.
I think that you're probably exactly
Send it to
right.
the presses.
Yeah.
I do think that it fits, though, the fact that they're, while, yes, you can point to friends, right, in Lewis's fiction, the theme of friendship itself does not seem as important as in, say, even Barfield stuff, much less Tolkien's, right? And I wonder if part of that is just Lewis's thesis and in the Four Loves, that ultimately friends are not concerned primarily with each other and with their relationship as friends, but rather with this other thing that they're both interested in, right?
Yeah.
Or that all three of them are interested in.
I pointed out in the last podcast when we had a similar question, there's a wonderful phrase from E.E. Cummings in one of his poems. And he talks about things we cannot touch because they are too near. And I think that it's clear to state that Lewis's friendship, that Philia was the sustaining love of his whole life. Right? His friendship with Warney, his friendship with Arthur, his friendship with Barfield, his friendship with Tolkien and with Williams, and then with Joy. And I think that those friendships were the sustaining love. And they were, maybe it's just so baked in. It's kind of like religion in The Lord of the Rings, which is there, but it's baked into the worldview and one doesn't think about it. Aslan comes crashing in, but Iluvatar, Eru, the One, doesn't come crashing into The Lord of the Rings because it's always been there. And I think in the same way, those books wouldn't have been, most of them, without so many varied friendships. I also love how Lewis not only portrays some friendships, enjoyed them, but he inspires so many friendships. I mean, I know that I'm friends with every one of you on the screen. And he just does that again and again.
And it was like that when we went to the Undiscovered C.S. Lewis conference. Walking in, I knew some of the people in person, a lot from online, and it really didn't matter about the everybody else because I knew whatever table I was going to sit down at. During the recess during lunch, it was like, I think we'll find something to talk about.
Well, there's a really great quote from the esteemed philosopher Gonzo from the Muppet movie, where he says,
"Sing it again."
There's not a word yet for old friends who've just met. And yeah, like I found that certainly around the Rab Room community as well, partly because it's Lewis, but other writers as well. But yeah, I mean, meeting Andrew for the first time in April around a C.S. Lewis conference, our mutual friend David Vasiliou. It's like picked him up at the airport. We had a chat on the way about is the C.S. Lewis conference his family runs in Romania, and like by the time we arrive at dinner, we're friends. And it's great to have that common bond.
Yeah, and when we were at Matt's wedding, it's like, oh, some listeners, cool.
That was great.
Your comment about Lewis being friends with people that disagreed with him, I was looking at the list of people and ordinary people, and there are at least 6 people who were either atheists or claimed to be atheists at various points in their lives. Alan Richard Griffiths, Lewis's chief companion on the road from atheism to Christianity. Janie Moore, who may or may not have been an atheist, probably was. Arthur C. Clarke, who remained an atheist for the rest of his life. Harry Weldon, who at least Lewis described as an atheist, may not have been that. J.B.S. Haldane, certainly an atheist. And then Mary Nayland or Mary Shelley that I talked about a little bit earlier. So the former atheist got along pretty well with people who were currently atheists. He understood them and they him. And even though he ended up disagreeing with them ultimately over the major issue in life, their understanding of Jesus Christ, nevertheless, he didn't therefore get rid of them as friends because they disagreed on that point. He was still true to the relationships.
Well, and he
within
did.
I was just going to say, and even within the Inklings, it was far from uniformity. It's often described as, a group of Anglicans or group of Christians, but there was diversity both in denomination, but also, you have, anthroposophy and other slightly murkier, harder to define spiritual worldviews.
Yeah, and didn't Lewis say to in such matters to find an opponent is almost to find a friend, right? And that the friend, the second friend, the alter ego, liked all the same things, but in the wrong way. And so I would have, if we had an argument over who was more important, whose works do we like better, Tolkien or Lewis, I'd of course side with Lewis, but I would absolutely embrace somebody who could thoughtfully disagree with me and make the case for Tolkien, and I'd be nearly persuaded. People who came by and said, "Oh, that's just silly. Those are just fairy stories." Imagine you still talking about those horrible books that we read when we were children, would be a Susan and wouldn't be welcome in the circle.
I'm thinking of the personal heresy and Lewis's relationship with E.M.W. Tilliard.
Mm-hmm.
The book, the collection of essays, 3 by each man, is subtitled A Controversy, and he talks in there about how he loves rational controversy, disagreement, and he thought that he and Tilliard could still be friends, and I think he thought of Tilliard as a friend.
Absolutely.
In the chat, somebody was pointing out that, Cole was pointing out that Orwell had many friendships, but she didn't really realize it until the end.
Right. She says that she had no other loves, but she was really surrounded by love, and how sad for her to miss that. One of the things I mentioned before in the earlier podcast is just how Lewis, I don't like my metaphor. The one I've been using is he kind of hollows out that same sort of place in each of us so that when we meet each other, it's like, oh, you too, you have that space. I don't know that it's maybe something missing as it is something that he gives us. I'm not quite sure how to describe the phenomenon of walking off a plane and meeting Ross Wilson, the marvelous Irish sculptor who's done work on Lewis, and just instantly becoming friends, or like Matt said, falling into immediate conversations. Anybody who loves Lewis enough to spend time and money on him, I would be, wouldn't hesitate to hand the keys to my home and to welcome in. And I'm not quite sure what Lewis does. And it's not the same with other authors. It's not even the same with Tolkien. I know that I can trust people who are deeply devoted to Lewis. And I don't know. What do y'all think? What do we call that? How do we describe that phenomenon? I don't know.
As you were talking, Andrew, I remember when we were chatting a few months ago, you were sharing about your, I guess, universal theory of Lewis, like your what is it that binds all of these these themes together? I remember you said in a word, it's love, and I know love is a big word, so it can mean different things. And I guess we have a whole book by Lewis about those different things.
Mm-hmm.
But it's I don't know. I think as you were talking, I was thinking about that of this shared love, this thing that we're all looking towards, and so it's I guess you have that shared foundation.
Yeah.
It's also interesting because Lewis has such a broad range of genres that he writes in, and yet, as you say, I know I can trust anybody that likes Lewis, even if they have a preference for Lewis the apologist, Lewis the fairy tale writer, Lewis the philosopher, Lewis the literary critic. There is a certain, whatever it is that you like about him, there's a certain quality that immediately makes me trust you.
Yeah.
Or I almost bought a house because I saw that the person had left a copy of a Lewis book on the nightstand. I was like, I bet they've taken care of it. I can trust this person.
I'm thinking
My
that the
wife saw it a little
thousands of
differently.
letters that Lewis wrote are testimony to his friendship with all kinds of people. And certainly, many of them were mere acquaintances, but the fact that he devoted so much time and energy to writing letters and answering every letter he ever received indicated that it's like everybody he communicated with was either becoming a friend or was already a friend in one sense or another.
So if as I suggest, if Lewis's definition of love is where we go out of ourselves towards the other, as he says in the talks that become the four loves, love is primarily other centered, right? The whole basis of the Trinity is that the Father loved the Son, and the Holy Spirit is the love between the Father and the Son, and there's a fundamental selflessness to love, which is why I argue that the opposite of pride is love, right? And the opposite of love is not hatred, but it's an interest in the other. And Joel, as you were saying, the letter to Sheldon Van Auken where he says, make use of me any way you wish, right? There's an interest in Lewis. He was always curious and asking questions about the other. And part of that is his generosity and Christian love. But part of that is what he says in Experiment and Criticism, right? My own eyes are not enough for me. I must see with other eyes. I would gladly see what other men have wrote. I would gladly see what other people have in worlds that other people have invented. And to get outside of oneself, to humble oneself and consider the other, and to welcome them in and to invite them. And Lewis was always, I gather from the different, biographies and things, always really solicitous of others, curious about others. And there's a real kind of, as Diana Glyer would call it, an intellectual hospitality, even a hospitality of relationship or soul. And that, I think, is that loving nature is where friendship is born. You love this thing that I love. Now tell me about the way that you do. And that may be even a path forward for us, those of us in America who, it's been a very passionate election. How about questions about, tell me why you voted for somebody that I don't agree with, and let's sit down in a caring way and have those conversations. Lewis was willing to invite vigorous debate and disagreement. And I think he almost treasured being knocked down and proven wrong as much as he enjoyed being proven right, because it expanded his soul and it helped him see with other eyes. And that's certainly what all of you have done for me.
And Angela Teal mentioned in the chat, did anyone open a Lewis book today just because it's his birthday? And she said that she read The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe at midnight, which is very impressive.
Yes.
But I highlight that just to say that one of the chief activities we encourage everyone to do on C.S. Lewis Reading Day is to share some of their favorite quotes from C.S. Lewis on social media and tag them with the hashtag C.S. Lewis Reading Day. Just to try and encourage other people to maybe pick up a Lewis book. And if you would like beautiful little graphics, we have many on our website, so you don't even have to make them yourself. And we'll get into quotations a little later, but I shared this on the last live stream that this is probably one of my favorite quotations regarding friendship, where Lewis says, friendship is the greatest of worldly goods. Certainly to me, it is the chief happiness of life.
Well, and here's to our chatters, Sarah McHale, who's rereading After Humanity, Michael Ward's marvelous book on abolition of man. Cole Parker was Horse and His Boy. Joel was reading, what was Joel Habaker reading as his son was falling asleep on his chest? The chapter on Philly on the Four Loves. Yeah. So, yeah, good for all of you. Oh, there it is. Yeah.
And I'm going to be asking Matt Wheeler to unleash his guitar in a moment. But just to give people an opportunity to talk about what they're going to be doing next, does anyone have any particularly Lewis-related plans or Inklings-related plans?
I do want to mention that I've been asked by the Petoskey Festival in Michigan to be their keynote next year. And so in September of 2025, I'll give a keynote talk on Till We Have Faces. And during this next year, I plan to finish my doctorate and write my finish writing my book Until We Have Faces. So we're full steam ahead with that. And then, of course, I've just loaded a ton of books for your Christmas pleasure on my eBay site. And so I just uploaded some pictures of a collection of first edition Narnias up there. So yes, much work ahead.
Well, I'll be continuing somewhat. I've been doing Misquote Monday on my YouTube channel of shorts. I'm going to switch that instead of a weekly to make that monthly, as I had already looked over and considered for 2025 being the 75th anniversary of the first Narnia book, to do something a little bit different. It's not specific to Narnia, but a tip of the hat to Joel Heck. I know back in 2013 when I was, or before 2013, but I had learned of chronologically Lewis because it was around back then. And I did a monthly look at the life of Lewis for the official C.S. Lewis website and did a weekly one on my website. So I'm editing that to make it into a 4 or 5 minute video and going to call it the Weekly Chronicles of C.S. Lewis, looking at what happened in his life over the years for that particular week. And then hopefully finish that revision to the topical glossary with the screw tape letters and have that out early part of next year.
Can I recommend a book I just finished reading in a pre-publication form? It's going to be coming out in the next 6 months probably, but I was just really fascinated by a book edited by Rhys Leverty called Life on the Silent Planet.
Yep.
Subtitled Essays on Christian Living from C.S. Lewis's Ransom Trilogy. Just a really excellent collection, a lineup of authors, including Michael Ward and Lewis Marquis.
Holly Ordway, yep.
Holly Ordway. So really excellent, deep insights into each of the 3 books in the Ransom Trilogy. Highly recommended.
Yeah, Rhys's intro is important. He looks at Lewis in the Ransom Trilogy as a prophet. And yeah, I just recently read that and did a little blurb for that. Thornton, good on you. Good luck to you reading the boxing books. Dear Lord, if you want a cure for sleeplessness, that'll do it.
That'll do it.
Next year, I'm going through the Narnia books on the podcast, and so I thought some of the boxing stuff would be, even though it's very different, as I think most of you all know from Narnia, but some good background. And then I will admit I've never read Till We Have Faces, so next year that's I'm gonna tackle that and see.
And you're still friends with Andrew?
Not anymore.
I know all these references. I'm like, man, I'm looking forward to knowing what everyone's talking about.
Lovely. Yeah, I really hope to open that book up and show why it is. Why Lewis was right in his assessment. And I think that not only will it open the book up, hopefully in a way similar to the way that Michael Ward has done to the Narnia books, I hope it helps us as a priest and a pastor. I hope it helps us to understand the centrality and the depth of love in Lewis's life in a way that is very practical for us. And so I keep thinking about the first and second commandment, especially in light of the times we live in, to love God and to love our neighbors. And when we find that we fail on that, to fall back on the steadfast love of the Lord that never ceases. And that's certainly what Lewis is pointing towards all of his life, and especially in that great book. Well, put the toddler to bed, Joel. Good to see you.
Yeah, Thornton, whenever you do read Till We Have Faces, I highly recommend listening to the season of Pints with Jack where they discuss it. I feel it landed with me so much better because it was like a reading group. Because I don't know if I would have known what to make of it reading on my own.
The blind leading the blind.
Yeah. There's also a page.
I still don't know what to make of it.
Yeah, there's some resource on andrewlazo.com or mythoflove.com. You can find some resources. I gave a lecture at the Wade Center and a couple of lectures here and there, and those may prove helpful to you. But mostly I love what Lewis does to help us see clearly God's love, especially as expressed in all of our friends.
Chris Pipkin, before Riverside kicks you out again.
What
I'll hang on as long as I
things are
can.
you going to be doing?
Well, I've been working a little bit, tiny bit so far. We'll see how much time I get on it, but I want to do a book about Narnian education, because I think, regardless of what else Narnia is about, it's about a lot of things, but it certainly is about young people, basically, growing up, right, and learning, and becoming educated through access to this sort of other world, rather than simply acquiring job skills or or whatever else. So yeah, I've been working on that a bit. We'll see how much I get done, and then also always the podcast.
And Chris, I would steer you first of all to irrigating deserts. And Joel, forgive me for not mentioning that as one of your incredible contributions. Irrigating deserts, C.S. Lewis on education. Also, Mark Pike has done a really interesting thing using Narnia in elementary education. So Mark Pike on education, but start with Joel Heck and pay attention to his bibliography. He's just an incredible resource.
Sounds great. Thank you.
And with that, I'd like to transition to Mr. Matt Wheeler. What would you like to sing?
All right. I'd like to sing a song called Erebus, which David mentioned my Wonder Of It All album. This is Ned Bustard's cover art. He's a fellow Lancaster Countyan, and the songs are all inspired by classic works of literature. So there's an Narnian horse right in the middle, which can be Bree or Hwyn, depending whichever you like. There's also a Hobbit door sound hole to this guitar shape. Anyway, there's a lot going on here. But so the song's called Erebus, and it's inspired by my favorite Narnia book, The Horse and His Boy, which we have a copy of here. It has a special place in my heart for lots of reasons, but particularly because my fourth grade teacher used to read Narnia books to us and Old Testament stories and all kinds of things. But I loved it then, and rereading it a few years ago, I loved it even more as an adult. There's certain things that went over my head before, I'm sure. This one part from clear at the end, I'm sure I didn't get then, but as an adult, it's great. So I'll read a small bit here. So it says, Erebus also had many quarrels, and I'm afraid even fights with Kor, but they always made it up again. So that years later, when they were grown up, they were so used to quarreling and making it up again that they got married so as to go on doing it more conveniently. Classic stuff. So on the topic of that, this song is sort of an epilogue. It's like Kor and Erebus, Shasta and Erebus, looking back at their life together, and particularly their adventures in their youth, as recorded in the book, The Horse and His Boy. So if you're looking for a Narnian love song, you've come to the right place. Here it is. First time he laid eyes on her, she dawned like a dream. On a fine-blooded mare, a voice in the trees. And both they were running, he a peasant and poor. She would be a queen, he had a name and his horse. She was a lark midst the lindens and pines. She was a fire in the dead of the night. I won't let us die on the vine. No, I won't let us run out of time. No, I can't get you out of my mind. Oh, we've come so far. Oh, love, don't lose heart. Remember those days we were so young and so brave. First time she remembered, her heart turned toward his. He stood between a lion and her shaking fist. Her life flashed before her and reeled in the reins. He made her a promise she made safe away. She gave him courage to learn his true name. She saw the quiet hand guiding their way. I won't let us die on the vine. No, I won't let us run out of time. No, I can't get
you out of my mind. Oh, we've come so far. Oh, love, don't lose heart. Remember those days we were so young and so brave, once and always a promise. The weather's lashing of the rain and the wind, brave like a song, unfolding in song once again. I won't let us die on the vine. No, I won't let us run out of time. No, I can't get you out of my mind. Oh, we've come so far. Oh, love, don't lose heart. Remember those days we were so young and so brave. So young and so brave. So young and so brave.
Woohoo!
Fun fact about the album Wonder of It All too. Thank you everyone. The album, the percussion was almost all of it was done on hardcover books of the stories these are based on, including the Collected Chronicles of Narnia and The Hobbit. So,
and I thought I was a dork.
I mean, it's a niche within a niche, but you all are like among the people in that sub niche. So
The nichiest of all.
Yes, I think it's best just like embrace your inner niche and just run with it and see if anyone else likes it too. And yes, so glad to share.
I love it.
Lovely, perfect.
Well, I'll have you play us out in a moment, but to close, would everybody mind sharing a favorite C.S. Lewis quotation for this year? And as I said in the last live stream, bonus points if it's related to the theme of friendship, but we will accept others.
I'm gonna take a trick out of yeah. Who'd like to go first? Who'd like to go second? I want to go last. Go ahead.
I'll go second. Joe, you go first.
Me first?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, this is maybe for Chris. The task of the modern educator is not to cut down jungles, but to irrigate deserts.
Yeah. Or both, maybe in our season.
Yeah.
There's a lot of jungle out there. There's a lot of jungle.
Yeah, I've got a different
There's
one.
a lot of desert too.
From my earlier one, from Before Loves, friendship is something that raised. Friendship is something that raised us almost above humanity. This love, free from instinct, free from all duties, but those which love has freely assumed, almost hoe freely from jealousy and free without qualification from the need to be needed, is eminently spiritual. It is a sort of love one can imagine between angels.
Great.
Mine's also from the Four Loves, and he's talking about a group of friends together, and picking up in it a little bit. He says, "Those are the golden sessions, when 4 or 5 of us, after a hard day's walking, have come to our inn. When our slippers are on, our feet spread out towards the blaze, and our drinks at our elbows, when the whole world, and something beyond the world, opens itself to our minds as we talk, and no one has any claim on or any responsibility for another, but all are free men and equals, as if we had first met an hour ago, while at the same time an affection mellowed by the years enfolds us."
Hear, hear.
If ever I was crazy enough to go on a walking tour, that I think would still be my favorite part.
Yes.
I'll go next. This is from a letter to Arthur Greaves. If I had to give a piece of advice to a young man about a place to live, I think I should say, sacrifice almost everything to live where you can be near your friends.
Yeah.
I'll go next. I love love is not affectionate feeling, but a steady wish for the loved one's ultimate good as far as it can be obtained.
And what's the source for that, Matthew?
It's all Greek to me. Thanks, David.
You're welcome. I've been
that's
changing people's things throughout. It's been kind of fun.
Mere Christianity, I think.
There's that.
the one I shared on.
Go ahead, Matt.
Please go ahead, Thorn.
Yeah, for me, I guess the quote that I guess had the biggest impact, it's not friendship related per se, but it was in letter 26 of the Screw Tape letters, and it said, some surprise that the girl does not always notice just how unselfish she is being. So basically, it was just hit me like a ton of bricks that in my marriage, there's some things that I do that my wife doesn't realize how unselfish I'm being, and it just amazes me. And I just realized that, like, oh wow, that was not being unselfish if I'm thinking about it in such a way. And so, I guess a classic pastoral Lewis, it was something that just helped me completely reorient why and how I did some things, and made me a lot more, I guess, contrite and stuff. So that was, I guess, the quote that really affected me most this year. And I guess, applies to friendship in a similar sense that, in friendships you can do something you believe is unselfish, and just pat yourself on the back for it. But I don't know, maybe think twice on how unselfish you're actually being.
It's as soon as you hear yourself saying, "By Jove, I'm being humble." It's not good.
I often quote and maybe overquote the "what you two." I thought I was the only one quote, but we'll actually go with I shared that on social media today as well. But one of the things especially fitting for this discussion is also both those are from the Four Loves. That and this friendship is unnecessary, like philosophy, like art. It has no survival value. Rather, it is one of those things which give value to survival.
Fantastic. Well, I do want to acknowledge Helen Gardiner and Sarah McHale joining us from down under. So lovely to see you all, and cheers to see and hear from you. Before I share my quote and then we turn it over to Matt to sing us out, I do want to offer a blessing, not only to each of you, but to all of those who are listening. The blessing of God Almighty, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit be upon you and remain with you always. And may the love of God in Christ Jesus our Lord be your guiding light day and night in your friendships, in your loves, and in all the days of your earthly life. Amen.
Amen.
And to continue in that exact... Oh, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, before we hand back over to Matt, Cole wants to know, when's the guy coming out till we have faces, Andrew?
According to your prayers, I'm hoping that it comes out in 2026, which will be the 70th anniversary of the publication of the British version. I do want to share my one of my most helpful quotes from Lewis. It's amongst friends. It's from Narnia, and it's also one of the things that I love most when I hear my friends saying it. Jill says to Eustace, "Shut up and don't be an ass." And that's going to be my favorite Lewis friendship quote right there, because those who can say that to me are certainly valuable. Yeah, Matt, thanks for the note that you were tuning. I thought it was just a really bad song, man.
I thought for sure I was muted. I'm sorry about that.
No worries. There it is.
but the benefit is hopefully this song will be tuned. So, there's the quote with a fitting expression there too. Yeah. So this seems like a good way to close out this session. By the way, the Golden Sessions quote, I actually didn't realize where it came from, but Andrew quoted it when I was he and David and I were sitting around sharing scotch, and he was introducing me to David Wilcox, who I got to meet since then. Anyway, it's a whole other thing. But I remember I was like, it's super late. I know we have a conference tomorrow, but I feel like it's good to stay up and we don't get times like this. And he's like, these are the Golden Sessions. So it's like, there it was. Anyway, so there's a song called Pints with Jack. I wrote it for the Pints with Jack podcast and just recently did a studio version. You'll get the solo acoustic version this time, but yeah, the studio version will be available more widely soon. So here it is, the sort of unofficial theme song, at least at this point. Unofficial. Oh, here it is.
Have you been looking everywhere, searching for a place where you belong? Away from the masses, among clinking glasses, where the hearth fire's on. Let the laughter welcome you in, that eagle and child din. There's room at this table, so take a seat and tuck right in. Pints with Jack, Pints with Jack. Lewis and Tolkien, minds and pipes glowing, glad banter to enjoy. Cheers to the maker, the spirit, the savior, come be surprised by joy. Let the laughter welcome you in, that eagle and child din. There's room at this table, so take a seat and tuck right in for Pints with Jack. Pints with Jack.
This part's Andrew Lazo special.
Why should your heart not dance? Go further up and further in for Pints with Jack. Pints with Jack. Pints with Jack. Pints with Jack.
Yay!
There you have it.
Wonderful. Well, that was the East Coast live stream. We will be back at 7 p.m. Pacific time for the final live stream of the night. I'd like to thank all of our guests for joining us. Thornton Ray, Joseph Weigel, William F. Flaherty, Joel Heck, Matt Wheeler, Chris Pipkin, and my co-hosts Matt Bush and Andrew Lazo. I think we should toast the professor. To the
Yes.
professor.
To the professor. Cheers.
Thank you.
Ding.
And please join us again at 7 p.m. Pacific, where we'll continue going further up and further in.
Cheers.
Cheers.
See you then.
Hey, Joel,
Okay.
can you stay on for a moment?
Oh, sure, I think so.